Hello everybody, my name is Barry B, a bearcat stranded in space, and this is the first episode of Lost in Transmission, a podcast where I talk about anything and everything that interests me, but that's usually anime, video games, and whatever else. Usually we'll have a guest here and there, but for now, for the first episode, it'll just be me. Today we'll be talking about the Summer Game Fest of 2023. Today's date is June 10th, 2023. First 3 days of Games Fest is what we'll be going over, and I don't think it'll be that long of a video, but we'll see. First day we saw the opening ceremony on the Game Awards channel with Jeff Keighley's show, and then after that one it was followed directly by Day of the Devs and Devolver Digital's presentations. The show, Jeff Keighley's show kind of started a little later than I thought, but then again, these things can probably be delayed for a little bit. It took, I think, 30 minutes. I'm not too sure. But usually I feel like they start as soon as they're scheduled, give or take like 15 minutes maybe, but I don't know, I could be misremembering it and thinking of the Game Awards. Both of those shows tend to be kind of formatted the same way. I mean, obviously the Game Awards is a bit different, way more different, but still the same amount of hype, or at least that's what I was expecting with the energy from Jeff and the crowd. Apparently it was the first show in person for the Game Fest, which is cool. But I don't know, just overall the show just didn't seem to have too much energy. Even when it was some pretty exciting things like Mortal Kombat, Alan Wake 2, most of the excitement was coming from the continuation of the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, or in this case the announcement of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which totally understand. Like, everybody was waiting for that, and that thing, I'm not a fan myself. I hate kind of some Final Fantasy, but I'm not too much into it. But I'm really happy for everybody who saw it coming, and it's like, oh yeah, this is it, and it looks great. It really does look great. I'm happy to see that they opened up the open world. 2 on-stage appearances that were interesting were for Mortal Kombat 1, where we got to hear from Ed Boon. A few more ideas coming for the remake or the reboot. Some of the story stuff that he was saying that they changed was that, in this case, Scorpion and Sub-Zero this time are brothers. Some friends become enemies, and some former enemies become allies, that kind of thing. We got to see Raiden in the trailer that they showed, and hey, cool, more Asian representation. That's cool. Other than that, it's the same cool goriness. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that in the background behind me, I'll just have a playlist of some of the trailers that were showing up during each of those presentations. They're not in order, they're just shuffled, just to give you guys something to look at. But yeah, and I'll source all the videos in the description below. But overall, you had a cross-platform template, which we already know they always do, but each year depends. The other sorry, I got a little off topic there, but the second onstage appearance that surprised, well, less the information surprising me, but more who popped up there, was Nick Cage for the announcement of his character in Dead by Daylight. And I wasn't too sure if he was going to be a killer, given the new movie that's coming out for him, or what was it called? I think the new movie was called Sympathy for the Devil. But yeah, or if he was just going to be himself as an actor. Technically, yes, an quote-unquote exaggerated version of himself. He'll be there, but cool enough. yeah, wasn't expecting him to be up there for let's talk about the game, but hey, he sold it in his usual way. Was very much into it enough to just like, hey, I'm in this game, guys. I made sure that every grunt and everything is me, which is cool enough. I'm happy to see the reintroduction of Prince of Persia, or the Prince of Persia franchise, and I think we'll be seeing more of that over at Ubisoft's conference. Definitely a little bit more focus on like who on the bosses besides the platforming. This doesn't look like it's turning into what the other Prince of Persia games were. Instead, it's going back to some of its roots of being a side-scroller, and we've seen some of those in the mid-2000s. Let's see. Path of Exile 2 was also announced. I've played the first one. I stopped because the seagulls fucking scared the crap out of me. And also the grind is kind of a little too much, but it's a good Diablo clone, or Diablo-like game that's free to play. And I'm assuming the next one is going to be free to play as well. We did also get some gameplay, not at the opening show, but later on. It looked really good. It really looked good, and we'll see if I actually go back to playing it, but I don't know. The one thing I keep forgetting that happens in these types of shows is not only the ad spots, but also some of non-game media, but kind of nerd culture commercials. In this case, they put the trailer for the next season of The Witcher. I mean, I'm gonna watch it just to see where it goes. Kinda didn't like that they put that there, but it's not as bad as when they put the Black Adam trailer way back. That was weird and awkward. God, I don't know how, it felt like the Samsung ads were almost endless, but they were there. I already know what I'm excited for, and they already just put up Alan Wake 2 again and talked to Sam Lake. That was cool. Again, Jeff Keighley didn't seem to be engaging too actively in that, but standard interview. What's the game about? What do we expect? That type of thing. And I can't wait to play Alan Wake 2. And it comes out in October, I think. Yeah. Looks great. They previewed some, like a really small snippet of some gameplay, and I think there was like an offhands version that IGN played, and they should have a video of that. But I'm excited for it. It seems like they changed some of the flashlight mechanics to more like a full stun and then going back to shooting. But we'll see how it fares. More or less, they're trying to aim for more of a survival horror angle, closer to like, as one of the IGN guys said, closer to how you feel when playing Resident Evil 2 rather than like a Resident Evil 4 thing, which I know a lot of people like. That is like the gold standard of survival horror action. But knowing Remedy's writing, oh, it's gonna be super atmospheric. What I wasn't expecting, and this wasn't, again, not mentioned at the show, but only recently, was with Alan Wake 2, there's a whole investigation court board type of thing going on as you go through the story, and it'll trigger parts of the story or something, elements of it. So that looks cool. Get a new cool Sonic game called Sonic Superstars. I wasn't bouncing off the walls, but it looks fun, like every other Sonic game I've seen in the past few years. And it's actually pretty nice. I got flashbacks back to like being a kid, playing it at a daycare where that's all they had was the Sega Genesis or whatever. And God, I don't know, something like turned on when I saw the little what do I call it? Labyrinth or whatever it is that you have to do sometimes. Honkai Star Rail was announced for PlayStation. 2 new characters. I kind of missed their names, but I just summarized what they looked like. We got a bouncy fox lady who's an archer, and a redhead punchy boy with a big old robot hand. So look forward to that. And of course they highlighted Silver Fox again. I appreciate it's been a week as of this recording since she was announced. So yeah, I don't know when the role for those start coming out, but probably sometime soon. I don't know if it's before the rollout to PlayStation. I was super stoked though to see more gameplay of Lies of P. I like the creepy aesthetic. It's definitely heavily inspired by Bloodborne, but art style wise, a little bit more has its own dark whimsy. Especially since it's going for since its art style is set in like 1900s Parisian. Oops. Sorry about that. Parisian art. But excuse for that. Things didn't work out on that one. I'll probably edit that out. But yeah, the dark 1900s aesthetic of Paris, that pretty creepy, especially having automatons running around and clockwork people. It looks like they have their own version of trick weapons based on the what's it called, robot arm or whatever arm of Pinocchio, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with this version, this like retelling of Pinocchio. It'll come out around September, and there's already a demo available, and I do plan to play that. Hopefully I can maybe record something of it, but we'll see. I'll have to check the performance on it. We got a trailer for Annapurna's showcase on June 29th, but mostly just filled time. There was a lot of free-to-play stuff that popped up too. Not too much. It just felt like it had a larger presence in the presentation in Jeff's show. Throne and Liberty, along with Warhaven, popped up. Not too interested in those. Throne and Liberty is a free-to-play Amazon fantasy MMO-like game. We'll see. A lot of Amazon's MMO or MMO-like games don't really have good track records, or at least as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong. There could be some that people are enjoying, and hey, cool. Nexon's Warhaven, that just looks like a big hodgepodge mess. Maybe it's fun. There's a lot of customizability. I saw a combat rig and a plate carrier on a knight, which is, yeah, that's okay. But I don't know. It looks cool. At the same time, it also just looks plain uninspired, boring, and more of the same. So I'm not touching that anytime soon. But I could be wrong. Party Animals is already on my wish list. That one's fun. It's basically just gang beasts with creatures. Looks fun. Dying Light had some content updates. Crash Team Rumble was also, Rumble Party was also there. I need to take a second look at that. I don't remember if it was a tag team fighter or just a party game, but I'll take a look at that later. That Baldur's Gate updates, more Spider-Man details, but I'm pretty sure most of us can look for that. I'm excited for Spider-Man. I haven't played the first one yet, mostly because I didn't own a PS4 for the longest time until recently, so I'll probably play that. And Spider-Man 2 is PS5 exclusive, so that's a thing to remember. And Venom, they had a screenshot of Venom. He looks great, and it's releasing around October 20th. One thing I wasn't expecting was a Left 4 Dead-esque game called Toxic Commando, made by Saber and Focus Interactive, with John Carpenter of all people. which is that was surprising, but it wasn't like, ooh, that's cool. It was just like, oh, okay. But yeah, Toxic Commando. The gameplay, again, like I said, just feels like Left 4 Dead. The only difference is there is vehicle combat. You are able to be in what looks like to be an open world, driving around with your squad in the zombie apocalypse with, I don't know, cool soundtrack. Black Desert Online had content update with some content coming with a new region inspired by a historical era. I forgot which historical era it was. I'm not that caught up on Korean history, so, but aesthetically looks cool. There is the Lord of the Rings Minecraft survival game. That's not actually Minecraft, but it technically is. Mines of Moria. Prior to the announcement of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was the mobile game Ever Crisis. I don't know where in the timeline that is, or if it's own spin-off. Looks fun for a mobile game. I know Final Fantasy has a few mobile games, I think. Just sure. Like a Dragon Gaiden. I forgot the full title, but there's a new edition or new spin-off of like a dragon. More Kiryu. Never gonna get tired of Kiryu. More Yakuza drama, more Yakuza action. Always looks great. Another indie game that was shown was called Under the Waves. I would describe it like Jacques Cousteau makes a psychological thriller. You're diving deep somewhere you don't... I don't know if it's an alien world, but you're just down in the depths, following this one diver in a research station, and I guess you start seeing ghosts or apparitions and some other like emotional repressed memories. So that looks interesting. Fae Farm, another game that's inspired by Stardew Valley, or more like a bit of Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon. Looks cute, looks cozy. I don't know if I'll play that. Honestly, this one is less of a highlight, but it stood out. Was the rep for Marvel Snap. Was very enthusiastic when he was up. Honestly, I think he brought the most energy out of everybody on that stage in any of the presentations before the Final Fantasy Rebirth trailer was revealed. Way more than Jeff. Wayfinder was another like Destiny-like game. We're getting a lot of games that are similar to each other, which again, I get it. It happens. And what changes there is like their unique flavor of whatever they're gonna be doing for those squad game focused games. Fortnite is getting an editor for Unreal Engine because the Unreal Engine is coming out now. Star Trek Infinite, I have no clue what it is. They just had a trailer. They also again had another non-video game related plugin for the Twisted Metal series. I thought it was a movie. Apparently, it's a TV series. It's okay. A lot of good indie games popped up. Ones that look like they were supposed to be big blockbusters, like Avium. I don't know. It just didn't get me excited or go like, ooh, I want to try that. It was more like just, okay, we'll see how it pans out. And I feel like that's what you should be feeling for a lot of games. Not in a place of bad, bad intentions, but just more like, we'll see. Because a lot of the games that we've had, especially the past year or so, have come out as like broken, janky things. It's definitely, I think it was powered by Unreal, but it feels like a, what makes you think of Unreal Tournament with your hands. Combat is focused on spell casting. Well, basically your finger guns, essentially. From what they showed, it's not as... It's a lot less visceral than I was expecting. Cool particle effects and everything, but the attacks that our main character does didn't feel punchy or, you know, it felt just a lot more floaty and clunky. I was expecting them to have the more of an impact, similar to how you have combat in Ghostwire. But, and if you've seen that game or played it, you know what I mean by like how that feels, because whether or not you liked Ghostwire, the combat still kind of felt pretty good, and or at least impactful when you were doing it. But overall, that was the Summer Games Fest stream. Day of Devs. Beastie Ball was shown, which was like Pokemon, but you trained them for volleyball rather than combat. Well, volleyball combat. It was cool, had some nice hand-drawn and quaint animations. I liked it. And Hyper Light Breaker feels in tone kind of like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like the same world as Hyper Light Drifter, even though they say it is. And feels more like its own thing, which, that's totally fine. I just don't personally feel the connections to Hyper Light Drifter, but I could be wrong once they finally release it. It's kind of like a revamp of like what they did in combat when you compared Risk of Rain 1 to Risk of Rain 2, but there's some like not art inconsistencies. I don't know. One does not feel like the other, and they feel like two vastly different games, and they are. But so much so that they don't feel like they're part of the same world. We'll see how that turns out, but it might be fun. Definitely co-op, but also has single player. Single player, I think maybe the worlds might be randomly generated. We'll see. They had a lot more other indies, lots of puzzle in games with personal narratives. Totally fine. Though some of the devs calling in for those presentations had some, at least on my end, they sounded like they were having audio issues, so I had to turn the volume up a little bit more to be able to hear what they were talking about. Hellskate, riding that gritty and slamming demons. Looks like some pretty cool fun, do combo with skateboard, kill demons. Music definitely slapped, so I'd definitely say check that out. But overall, lots of indie games that showed up on Day of Devs, but I'm more on the fence of those. None of them really made me go, oh, I want to buy that. Just want like, oh, interesting. That looks cute. One I'll definitely keep my eye on is Salt Sea Chronicles, which I need to double check on what was going on with that. But it looked interesting as well. But oh my god, there was like a dime a dozen Minecraft city builder things throughout the 3 days, which I thought was very interesting, but none of them called out to me. But hey, the variety is the spice of life. Over in the Devolver Digital Showcase, as usual, insane, bonkers, fake documentary of Volvi, the vole mascot of Devolver, and its fake gaming history. Or no, it's real. Totally real. That one is definitely a must-watch on its own, just for the sake of just. And most of Devolver stuff is just fun shit to watch. As for the actual games, we got Wizard with a Gun, which looks like Don't Starve with gun wizards, a single player and co-op, so that's one. Talos Principle 2. This was also already announced over at the PlayStation Showcase. Looks really great. Apparently there's a story, and there's more of it now. Puzzle game. Still feels like a tech demo to me, but hey, cool. It looks cool. A new Bennett Foddy game, called Baby Steps. Just as bonkers and looks just as hard. Human Fall Flat 2 was announced. Overall, that one was a lot shorter. Day of devs and developer were fairly short compared to the opening stream, but that summarizes day 1. Day 2 was the Tribeca Game Spotlight. From there, we got an indie visual novel called Goodbye Volcano High. Dino teens living life, struggling for because graduation's happening, as well as the impending doom of an asteroid hitting them. So lots of introspection. May or may not try that, but all right. Ticks all the marks for all the what counts now as an indie game. More puzzle games called Nightscape, mostly about centering around Arabic star constellations, which I don't know much about, and that actually gets me interested in looking that up and finding out a little bit more. It's a puzzle platformer. There's some combat. Definitely definitely with a focus more on exploration, since you are mostly going to be looking into star constellations. Interesting one. I don't know how I'll play it. I'll definitely look at someone else play it just to see how it goes, and maybe I'll try it. Is a game visual, I don't know how to call it, but it's more like a narrative visual novel, I guess, called Stray Gods. Your choices play into the narrative as usual, but the unique thing about it is that it is a musical. It is a musical. And the lyrics adapt to your choices in dialogue. So, that's interesting. Based around Greek gods and performing arts. Definitely check it out. I don't know what to think of it, but definitely check it out. There's also the Expanse Telltale game. That's one I would say wait and see on. I'm a big fan of the Expanse TV series and the books, but we'll see, given that it is Telltale. It's not technically the same company, but we'll see. Never heard of Deck 9 Studios, but to take a look at them later. Presentation was about an hour, about 5-6. A good amount of games that were just shown and talked about. It was very cool. Definitely one of the another highlight for me, even though it's not too many games shown there, was Highland Song. Narrative adventure game. Looks quaint, looks cute, looks fun. And coming on to day 3 with the Future of Play Direct, Future Games Show, and Wholesome Direct. It was presented in a Toonami-esque way, or at least that's what they said in their description, inspired by like Toonami and how that was all set up, with a CG cyber gamer presenter. I think the name was Melios, I could be wrong, but being presented by Glitch. I'm not familiar with any of these. If these are actual personalities on streams or whatever, let me know. Cool. A few of my highlights from those was Yasuke, a Lost Descendant, essentially street samurai in a Afro-futuristic action game. Music sounds great. Trailer was a little bit muted and felt like it didn't blend well, but I'm assuming it'll feel way different in game. Story looks, you get hints of it. Feels like an anime, sounds like an anime. It's totally fine by me. Let's see. Atomic Picnic, Cavern of Dreams looked interesting because it definitely was inspired, but it definitely is influenced and inspired by Banjo-Kazooie. Rune Fencer Ilias looked really good. Ritual Night was another one. I don't think I'd play that one. I mean, hey, if you love Among Us, go for it. But it's essentially just cutesy Lovecraft Among Us. Another walking survival sim was Arctic Awakening. And another house builder survival game was called Reka. Slavic inspired. Your house is Baba Yaga's house, as far as I can tell, because it's the chicken-legged house, and you can customize that, build that, wander the wilds, and explore, and keep adding to it, as far as I can tell. Strengths of the presentation, I'd say, were that is non-stop trailers and not too many stops to interview people. Which can be good depending on what the games are, but sometimes can make the presentation feel too slow. But definitely you need to break in the monotony. Yeah, just lots of Minecraft-like games. Solarpunk and Wild Mender were also like that. In Stars in Time looked interesting. Could be a sleeper hit. I don't know. We'll have to see. Makes me think of Omori. I don't know who the developers are for that. For In Stars in Time, so probably need to double check on that. But looks interesting. Definitely gonna be a trauma game. Either giving you trauma or just like, exploring the characters' trauma. Hermit and Pig looks like a stupid fun game because it's simple enough. I don't know what the premise is. You're just like running around as this goofy looking dude. The art style definitely reminds me of the old Game Boy Advance or DS adventure games. So that one's to look out for. More puzzle games called Let's Rebellion. I thought it was a straight up normal puzzle game. Puzzles kind of look like Sudoku, but it also looks like there's some element of like strategy in there too. I don't know. I'm not touching it. Looks hard on my brain. And another game that popped up was Angel Line Era? I couldn't read from the font, but I think that's what it's called. Another nostalgia scratching type of game. It's an action game. It might be an RPG, but the art style looks a lot like early 2000s, not 2000s, early PlayStation RPGs and their models. Kind of reminds me of the low poly versions of all the characters from the original Final Fantasy VII. The Wandering Village is a city manager game that I saw. Cool bit on that one. It's a village that's built on top of like this gigantic creature. The art style looks like it's inspired by Studio Ghibli. Looks fun. I don't know if I'll touch it, but looks fun. Then they did like a whole rapid fire section of trailers. That was pretty cool, and try to note the names because these look cool, and I'm having a hard time finding some of these trailers too. The ones they fired off were I thought looked good to me were Sushi Ben, Brew Barons, Videoverse, Escape from Mistwood Mansion, which I gotta look up. But yeah, some of it I couldn't catch. Honestly, I kind of wish they would have just spent some time on those. The last two highlights from the future play direct for me was Shashin Go, learn Japanese with photography. That looks like fun. I'll see if I can remember my Japanese playing that game. And probably the thirstiest game I've seen, well, kinda. In terms of visual novels that have been on this direct was Touch Starved. I don't know what the premise is, but it's set in some fantasy world. Modern fantasy world. It's I had not much to talk about for the wholesome direct. It was wholesome. Lots of family friendly and wholesome games. Cozy, heartfelt indie stories. If anything, year after year, it seems like we're getting a lot of variety in our indie game offerings, and that's good. I personally like having that volume of just like really cool shit to play, and can only hope that a lot of these people who put their hard work into these games are able to have their games release and find some success. Of course, whether it's AAA or smaller corporations, we know that sometimes that's not the case. And so, you know, try to support the games that you want to support. Yeah, almost an hour long, non-stop trailers. Only, it's basically almost non-stop trailers, but some intermittent talking, but it wasn't too bad. I enjoyed it. Future Games Show was weird. And this was the last one for day 3 so far. That one had a G4 Life presentation. It was presented by Intel, with its hosts being Yuri Lowenthal and Laura Bailey, with a song opener for one of the games. I think it was the Flood one called. Okay. Of course, I'm not gonna remember. There was just so many things to watch there, but definitely take a look at what's been released. I don't know, I kind of turned off my brain once I started hearing a song performance. It was a good performance, but I wasn't associated with the game that they were showing at all. Some of the ones that popped up that I thought looked pretty cool, or just like stayed in my brain rent free, was Resistor, which looks like a fast-paced racer with a speed racer-esque world, definitely anime inspired, but has its own flavor in its art. Looks fun, looks high energy, and apparently is described as a CARPG. So we'll definitely see some RPG elements, and how that will show up. We'll find out when it releases. The next game that they showed, I wasn't too sure if it was 2 different games or if it was the same game. Star Trucker. Sounds fun, like stupid simulator fun, but the trailer they showed before that, I don't know if it was for the same thing and whether or not they were both for the Unreal Engine. And I don't know if it was a bait and switch. I really don't know. It really confused me, and I'm still confused even now. So, yeah. Lords of the Fallen just basically has a full reboot. The last time I remember of that game, it was more like a Nordic version of Dark Souls, or a Souls-like game. Now they've kind of just jumped more head on to the aesthetics of a Souls-board game rather than fully Nordic. It has its own unique resource mechanic. I'll call it a resource. It's called they're calling it Umbral Power, and it allows you to do a bunch of various things, and you have a separate world you enter to obtain it. And I think it influences aspects of the world when you fight stuff. It'll be interesting, and it's definitely an interesting way to balance out what you do in fights, rather than just the usual stamina management. We'll see. Or if it's just a replacement. They scheduled it to be released around October 13th, which is a Friday. Yes, Friday the 13th. So we'll see. Wish them the best. And with all that stupid superstition out of the way, another Souls-like inspired game, well, Souls-like and Metroidvania definitely, is The Last Faith. Gothic horror, fantasy, side-scrolling, bloody action. That is the best way I can describe it. Looks interesting. Definitely reminds me more of Blasphemous, which was like side-scrolling Dark Souls Vania, but this time it's just Bloodborne. I don't know. Looks cool. Steel Seed, I am not interested in until something else pops up where that makes it sound more interesting to me. It's an over-the-shoulder action game. Explore a world generated by Unreal Engine 5, or whichever version we're on now. It looks like every other game I've seen that's been powered by Unreal Engine, especially with its lighting sources and everything. It's just, I don't know, it feels and seems like a game I've already seen and played before at some point. Just higher fidelity, because a lot of the Unreal Engine games, especially if you played Mass Effect and Gears of War, things like that, you know what I'm talking about. It felt like forever, but there was a chunk of it that was just a VR showcase. Cool if you are into VR, and you know what you liked from it. I could care less about VR for now. out of nowhere, and the trailer popped up earlier, was a Wallace and Gromit game. Okay. I'm down for Wallace and Gromit. Energy for the show was good from the two hosts, though it kind of felt like it had the feel of like 2000s era hype cheese from shows similar to that back when G4 was around. But it is what it is. Everybody did what they wanted. Game that I saw that I was on the fence on, still am, but looks cool, is Laika. It's a side-scroller, post-apocalyptic game. Gameplay is basically BMX, shooty, platforming with furry animals. And I think the trailer was played behind me a little bit before. The last part of it was the Unreal Showcase. Again, the new Unreal Engine looks really beautiful. I'm wondering what they would use it on aside games and what else you can apply it to. I remember way back I wanted to try to do like animated shorts or machinimas with the Unreal Engine. And honestly, for a lot of people who use it for that, I hope they give you more tools and assets to play with, and hopefully streamline some stuff from before. But sadly, I'm not up to date on that stuff, so we'll see. The last game there that looks interesting, on the fence, but looks definitely fun, was called Fretless Riffing Rampage in a pixel art rock RPG. Definitely looks cool. Again, so many of the games so far in the 3 days I'm on the fence on. They all look good. Some disinterest me, but just a lot of layer of like, I don't know if this calls to me to buy, or just wait for a sale then to buy. But we'll see. Especially in the coming days with the Xbox Showcase coming out tomorrow, the Starfield Direct as well. So I hope to see something really interesting coming out from there, and the subsequent weeks after that. So hopefully those will be something that piques my interest. I barely remember the last Summer Game Fest as is. I don't know, it just feels like we get way more interesting trailers and announcements outside of this part of the year than we used to back when E3 was around. Now granted, E3 was already a dying horse, and by this point it's already totally dead. But I don't know, something about it, the format or just the presentation thing just doesn't get me excited. I'm happy that we have more variety of indie games, but big games for me to be excited for kind of lost that magic, mostly because of like the disappointments that had come out the past few years. Granted, we had to go through COVID, but I don't know. I feel like we've had a lot of shortcomings when it comes to the bigger games. Granted, we've had also really cool stuff too that have not been total disappointments either. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a weird egg scramble. But yeah, nothing else I could say. That's been the past 3 days so far for Summer Games Fest. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I'll try to do more of these and hopefully get some guests along to talk about it beyond Game Fest. But also be interesting to see their perspectives on what they're excited for coming out. Oh, though definitely it will probably pop up in the Xbox presentation, but it was leaked. Persona 3 Remastered. I am excited for that, but I'll wait to see what happens next. Yeah, stay tuned in for more, and hopefully we can also talk about other things on this podcast, depending on the guests, or whatever's going on out there that I feel like talking about. Anyways, I have been Barry B, Bearcat Stranded in Space, and this has been Lost in Transmission Episode 1. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye, my fellow space jockeys, and have a good one. Bye.